So I'm gonna attempt to make this video again. My cache is kind of full on my phone, so the video keeps cutting off. I'm inside the laundromat, so you're gonna hear a little background noise. Right now they have Lone Ranger playing on the television, so let's get past that. So let's get into some recent developments. So we are a week and a half post-presidential U.S. elections, and as I predicted, and many others, Donald Trump emerged as the victor. At no point did I think that Kamala Harris stood a chance. She's not a politician, certainly not a world leader, and the United States already in a precarious position on the world stage, would have fallen deeper into the quagmire, the hole, the black hole, if Kamala Harris was voted into office as the president. She cannot in any way match up to Prime Minister Modi, President Vladimir Putin, President Xi, Kim Jong-un. She cannot sit across the table from these leaders and they take her seriously. So Donald Trump already has a proven track record in terms of being able to communicate effectively with other leaders on the world stage. So that's a positive for the U.S. The U.S. is going through, internally as well as externally, extreme problems at the moment. They're losing their grip on world power, and they're losing their prestige. The United States, in the attempt to isolate Russia, President Putin itself finds that they're becoming more isolated on the world scene. To the black middle class, particularly to black women of power and positions of power who have been appointed by the colonial regime to maintain the hegemony over the black vote, didn't work out well for you this time. So for the next 3.5 years, the black petite bourgeoisie is going to slither back under this rock, and in 3.5 years from now, they're going to slither back out into the public light and again come with the same play card that they've been using for the last 70 years. Younger black men in particular showed the Democratic Party that their vote, their competence, their support can no longer and should no longer be taken for granted. So the American people have spoken. President Donald Trump is the U.S. president-elect. Let's get into this one bizarre story concerning the third assassination attempt, plot, murder for hire against Mr. Trump. Now, according to the U.S. Justice Department, 3 people have been charged with a murder for hire plot. And this so-called murder for hire plot leads us back to the capital of Tehran. Now, according to reports, U.S. Justice Department has charged 3 men in connection with an assassination plot to kill Donald Trump, the third such attempt. Farhad Shakeri, 51, Carlos Rivera, 49, and a Mr. Jonathan Lodehart, 36, were each charged with murder for hire, an assassination plot which U.S. officials claim was being coordinated and financed by the IRGC, which is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. That's the elite military wing of the Iranian army. According to officials, the Justice Department, this Shakira guy, who is thought to be in the Iranian capital, was offered $500,000, $500,000 US, by the IRGC to surveil and assassinate President Donald Trump, along with 2 other members who are thought to be Jewish Americans who reside in New York City. They never released, as far as I know, the names of these two other alleged targets, but according to reports, they're Jewish Americans. So I'm assuming that they have some kind of power and prestige on the circuit of U.S. politics. I'm very skeptical about this so-called plot to assassinate Donald Trump. I'm even more skeptical when they say that the plot leads back to Iran. I think it is rather ironic that right up until the elections, or at the elections, that these arrests were made. And again, the main culprit, the guy who says that he was financed to carry out the surveillance and assassination, he himself has been charged, but he's not in U.S. custody. The other two guys are, apparently. Again, this story is so convoluted because according to the FBI, they were contacted by this Farad Shakiri. He told them of the plot, but he's charged. That's a red flag. I don't believe this story at all. I think that this story and the so-called assassination plot was engineered by members of the deep state, the neocons, and they were attempting and/or are attempting to inflame American sentiments in support of an attack and war with Iran. That's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong. Who the hell am I? But anyway, yeah, this story is convoluted with just many questions and, you know, twists, plots, turns, and all that other good stuff. I don't believe it at all. I don't believe this story at all. I don't believe, and the Iranian government itself categorically denies involvement in any plot to assassinate President Trump. I mean, it would be unprecedented on the part of Iran to order the assassination of not just a high U.S. political figure, but the president himself. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. I don't believe that Iran ordered a Revolutionary Guard Corps. I don't believe they were involved. I don't believe that Russia would allow for them to be involved in such a sinister plot. China and their other allies. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. I mean, it would invite total destruction upon Iran if such a plot was not only in the making, but carried out. I just don't believe it. And again, this comes from the United States Justice Department. I mean, we've seen time and time again where they make these spectacular claims about, you know, this or that. I mean, this is the same U.S. Justice Department that sanctions my persecution in this country. So I don't believe anything that comes out of their mouths over the U.S. Justice Department. I mean, this is the same department that sanctions attacks against American citizens, microwave attacks, all kind of machinations come up out of the Justice Department. I don't believe it. But let's move on. So there were rumors that Mike Pompeo, who was an arch neocon, a career politician, there were rumors that he was being considered for the office of Secretary of Defense, as well as Nikki Haley, another neocon, was trying to maneuver her way up into the Trump administration. As it stands now, and American people should applaud Donald Trump and the people behind him. Mike Pompeo is no longer being considered to run the office of Secretary of Defense. And that is a good thing, because Mike Pompeo throughout his career has been involved in unjustified wars all over the planet. So if he was in fact elected as Secretary of Defense, he will lead you right into World War III with Russia. He's an arch neocon. He is a defender of the international rules-based order. He woofs, he talks a lot of smack from his position of comfortability in the United States, but never will you see him pick up a rifle or a grenade and go to the front line and fight. But he's intent on sending your children off to fight these unjust imperialist wars around the world. So as it stands now, Mike Pompeo, he's out, which again I say is a good thing. Pompeo, he's a dangerous man, a staunch advocate of war with the big four: Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. People like that should be kept out of positions of power, because in the final analysis, America, its allies, cannot win a war against the big four. They will get crushed. So let's move on to the Ukraine war. You know, Zelensky is what I call him. Zelensky. He's shaking in his boots right now because he sees funding with, you know, Donald Trump being elected president. He sees that the war is about to wind down. I mean, Russia is overwhelmingly winning on the battlefield. The Ukrainian army is being crushed overwhelmingly by the force, the sophistication, the technological advancement of the Russians. I'll say it again. Ukraine never stood a chance of winning the war. They were being used as a battering ram against Russia, and now they're being abandoned by their European allies as well as the United States. They're never going to get into NATO. They're never going to get into the European Union. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of men, generations of men have been wiped off the planet Earth by the neocons of the West. All for naught. Not only have you not delivered a strategic defeat against Russia, but Ukraine, as a governing country, has become much smaller and is going to continue to lose men, material, and land until they decide to bend the knee. If they don't bend the knee, then Ukraine as a country as we know it will no longer exist in 5 or 10 years from now. I mean, it's just impossible for a country to take that kind of punishment, that kind of bloody beating, and emerge as a governing authority. I mean, it's not going to happen. Another development that we had a couple weeks ago is that the UN General Assembly voted for sanctions to be lifted against Cuba. We know that Cuba, according to the U.S., is a relic of the past, a relic of the old communist era, a relic of the Soviet Union. So, of the 193 members of the United Nations, 187 voted to condemn the embargo against Cuba. And we know what the embargo is. Cuba is in America's backyard, and America seems to think that the country of Cuba and its people are its natural slaves. So they have embarked upon a path to totally destroy and control the country of Cuba and its ability to sustain itself and sustain its population. But Cuba has been able to survive and will continue to survive. But 187 countries of the 193 members of the United Nations voted in favor of lifting U.S. sanctions, embargo against Cuba. One country abstained from the vote, and 2 countries voted in favor of the continued sanctioning and embargo of Cuba. Who do you think those countries were? Naturally, the United States, who imposed the embargo in the first place, they voted in favor of keeping the sanctions over Cuba and the destruction of its people. But who else? Who else do you think voted in favor of continued sanctions? I'm going to tell you who. No other than Israel. Israel and the United States voted in favor of the continued embargo against Cuba. Now, Black America, this is very important and you should understand. Cuba, we have a lot of black people in Cuba. A lot of black people on that tiny island called Cuba. Our people. The African diaspora. So you Democrats and you so-called black conservatives, you need to take that into account. Again, we have to start thinking internationally, and let's stop just thinking in our own small bubble of what can the president or the government do for us. We have to look at their overall international policies, and we have to determine whether or not those policies align with our moral integrity and our political philosophy. If so, then so be it. If not, then we need to stand in stark opposition against the continued embargo of Cuba. We need to stand in solidarity with our black people in Cuba. Just bear that in mind, black conservatives. Ridiculous. Another report that was reported on First Post. Putin is deepening his relationship and ties with Africa. I mean, Russia has always had good relations and historical ties with the African continent. President Putin has said that he's going to give Africa total support. Total support. So let me read off my notes here. Putin has offered total support for friends on the African continent. This as Russia and Africa held a summit. The summit took place in the Russian city of Sochi, a resort town on the Black Sea, where the red carpet was rolled out for ministers and business delegations from Africa. Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov, you know, that's Grandpa. I love this guy, man. He's one of the best prime ministers, foreign ministers that I've ever seen. I mean, this guy he's outstanding as a foreign minister. He's the type of foreign minister that every country needs. I call him Grandpa. Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov oversaw the event and stated, "Our country will deliver total support to our African friends on the continent. Friends in different sectors, ensuring sustainable development, the struggle against terrorism and extremism, combating epidemics and food problems, and the consequences of natural disasters." Again, as a lot of us older people know, I'm older, I'm not old, 51, but a lot of us remember the struggle in South Africa against apartheid. A lot of us remember the struggle in Zimbabwe. A lot of us remember the various guerrilla wars that were conducted all throughout Africa. You know, the people's movements. Eventually in South Africa, the ANC, they had to abandon their ideology of nonviolence, and they formed the guerrilla units, and they conducted an armed struggle against the South African apartheid regime, which Israel supported. Let's not forget that. Russia was there. Russia provided support, training, and weapons and intelligence to our people in Africa. So Russia has solidified itself as a friend of Africa for the duration of human time. Not once has Russia ever tried to colonize any country on the continent of Africa, even under the Soviet Union. Russia has always been a friend. Russia has always been a partner. And Russia now is embraced by Africa as a true friend, unlike the Western countries who've been suffering isolation more and more on the continent of Africa and all throughout the global South. So I'm going to read my summary. Russia has always been a friend of Africa, having poured billions of dollars, weapons, and training into the anti-colonial and apartheid movements. As a multipolar world emerges, Russia will continue to be a friend of Africa. At the start of the Ukrainian war, one of the goals of America and its Western allies, surrogates, however you want to refer to them, was isolation of Russia. They imposed sanctions. They propped up an illegal regime in Ukraine as a battering ram against Russia, all in an attempt to deliver Russia a strategic defeat. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, this is Russia that we're talking about. Peter the Great. Not only has the United States been unsuccessful in isolating Russia, but they've been successful in isolating themselves, especially with the war that's going on in the Middle East. I mean, the world is in shock. We are literally witnessing a genocide being carried out in the Middle East against the people of Gaza, as well as the people in southern Lebanon. A complete war of aggression. Population removal, starvation, disease, famine, all being carried out by America and its Israeli subjugate, surrogate, whatever, however you want to refer to them as. So America finds itself isolated. A couple weeks ago, we had the BRICS summit, and it turned out pretty well for BRICS members. The world is moving in a different direction. Unipolarism is dying. But again, those who are behind the ideas of unipolarity, they still have fangs. They're very dangerous. And as this world continues to transform against them, they're going to become more desperate. They're going to become more dangerous. A lot more of us are going to be targeted, harassed, assassinated, and crushed into the earth. But this tide, they cannot stop. And we saw that with the U.S. elections, particularly younger black men who were moving in a whole different direction. I'm not going to make this a long video, but again, I do apologize for taking so long to post another video. You know, I want to sit back and I want to examine, you know, when I post a video, I want to see the effect that it's going to have on the audience. Of course, you know, the channel just started. I'm doing this by myself now. I don't have any staff. If anyone out there has any equipment to give me that they're not using, you know, a nice camera, a laptop, something like that, then feel free to contact me. But I wanted to wait to the end of the video to show you guys what I have for you. Ta-da! Look at this. This is my work right here. Strategic Alliance. 504 pages of one of the most intense books that you'll ever read. I wrote this book back in the early 2000s. The book went live, meaning it was published February of 2004. And I dedicate this work right here to my people in America. My people, right? I think in a couple of days, I'm gonna get into some of the contents of the book. But right now, I'm just gonna read the dedication. So just bear with me. In special memory of David Wayne Zolili Dale, that's my boy Zolili, assassinated December the 19th, 1999. And Deshaun, we called him Lil Shitty, but his name was Deshaun McMurray, and the Swahili name that we gave him was Hodari, assassinated October the 13th, 2000, who were felled to reactionary violence in the streets of Oakland, California by Contra-positive elements belonging to a counter-revolutionary organization controlled by the California Department of Corrections and government counterinsurgency officials. Got to remember, the group that we were going up against was controlled by the California Department of Corrections, the CDC. And that control also entailed counterinsurgency tactics that they used against us. Your commitment to the historical mandate has never been at question, and the ultimate sacrifice incurred in the line of duty will forever till eternity ensure residence in the warrior's den. And love and memory of the guerrilla combatants who paid the ultimate price in the War of New African Liberation. W.L. Nolan, Cleveland Edwards, William Christmas, assassinated January 13, 1970. Jonathan Jackson, James McClain, William Christmas, assassinated August 7, 1970. George Jackson, assassinated August 21st, 1971. James Carr, assassinated April 6, 1972. Comrade Sin Q, he was SLA, assassinated May the 17th, 1974. Jeffrey Katari Golden, state sabotage, deceased August 1st, 1978. Without your magnanimous visions and sacrifices, the archetype of the Black Guerrilla Army would not exist. To our ancestors, who we owe our entire existence to, and to the future generations of dedicated new African leaders and guerrilla tacticians whom we have yet to produce, who will struggle uncompromisingly toward the creation of the Confederated African Union. To the guerrilla combatants all across America who stand firm, albeit they languish in misery within the prison industrial complex. Special thanks to all those new African theoreticians who over the years have been inspirational in my political development. Without y'all, I am nothing. Nope. Okay, well, we won't get into that. Okay, so that right there was a part of the dedication. We also have a preface and forward. Okay, I can get into a little bit of the forward here. There are many who will be shocked and utterly dismayed over the content and expositions advocated in this book. Many will espouse that it is nothing more than a terrorist training manual that should be banned by the federal government in the interest of national security. Now, this book was banned by the California Department of Corrections. If you got caught with a copy of the book, they weren't going to just simply take the book. No, they were going to take the book. You were going to be sent to ADSEG, and you were going to be validated as a member or an associate of the Black Guerrilla family. You could not have a copy of this book and not get validated. We had a few instances where Crips had copies of the book and they were validated as associates of the Black Guerrilla family. Still, there will be others inside political, media, and academic circles who will try to simply dismiss Strategic Alliance as racist propaganda of a fringe movement that no longer exists. The only problem with that is it can't be dismissed. The very existence of such a literary construct magnifies the multitude of contradictions that are an inherent makeup of American society. The corresponding war on terrorism. On January 25, 2003, former Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge was sworn in by the Bush administration as the first director of the newly created Office of Homeland Security. This office, designed to develop security contingencies to counter and to protect the borders of the United States from incurred domestic and international acts of aggression, terrorism, will incorporate the amalgamation of a number of federal and state agencies and have at its disposal a force infrastructure of 130,000 employees. I am currently being attacked by this very outfit right here in America. With the Arab threat of terrorism much overhyped, it was much overhyped. With the Arab threat of terrorism much overhyped and exploited for political reasons, it is my contention that in the final analysis, this mammoth institution will ultimately be used against America's domestic colony, the wretched Black New African population. Their prediction was over 20 years ago. And as predicted, Homeland Security and the FBI harasses me on a daily basis. So we have a copy. There's a lot of historical information in this book. Me personally, I can't. And I know it's my work, and and when I make this statement, it's not like I'm trying to sell it, but I can't compare this book to any other book in terms of storyline. I think storyline-wise, the only thing I can compare this book to is The Spook Who Sat by the Door. If anyone knows of that book or ever saw the movie, that book, well, the movie was banned. When it came out, it was on the scene for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared from the theaters. They banned the movie. But it's 504 pages. If I've used anyone's work inside this book right here, I always, tell you where I used it from. Like in the first couple of pages, before we get to chapter 1, I used quotes from Che Guevara. Now, I got Che's name up top here, if you can see it, Che Guevara. But I used 37 quotes from Che Guevara just to start the book up. Right? One, popular forces can win a war against any army. It is important that the popular forces be suitably informed, whether by intelligence or observation, of the enemy's weakness and have the capability to identify the enemy at all times. Fundamental 1. And then, we go down. The individual guerrilla warrior must have the right mental and moral attributes to do his job. And like I said, I used 37 quotes from Che Guevara. And then we get into chapter 1. And once we get into chapter 1, it starts with Nkuki. was overlooking a map of open California, which had been marked off with the grid coordinate zones of operation. He had been promoted by secret order as the new ground force commander of operations. The organization was undergoing a transition in the leadership command structure, and promotions were being handed out for tactical reasons. Internal discord was beginning to materialize within the ranks, and tensions were coming to a head. In his new position of authority, Nkuki was responsible for coordinating the activities of cadre sectors and establishing units where none existed. For this strategic task, he had a cadre of field enforcers and captains at his disposal, which made up Ground Force Operations Command and was a central party organ directly under the Central Committee. Also present were his strategic advisory personnel, who were each reviewing field data and analysis charts of various kinds. A military operation was underway, and its successful conclusion was primary to a shift of power relations within the guerrilla organization. Now, I'm going to stop right there. This book is explosive. You'll never read, unless I write part 2 of Strategic Alliance, you'll never read a storyline like this. But, you know, throughout the book we have, I think 32 chapters. Well, actually no. Chapter 46. Oh man, this is a big book, man. This is a huge book. Chapter 47, which is on page 473. We go down, 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 down. Now we're on page 489. Okay, and the book ends on page 494. But at the end of the book, I took a chapter out of Chancellor Williams' Destruction of a Black Civilization, and I have 25 questions at the back of the book. You know, if you read the book, if you study the book, if you analyze the book, dialogue with others, you should be able to answer these 25 questions. Like, for instance, one of the questions is question number 18. Very important, right? As a defender of the revolution and its principles, if you discovered that your closest friend or family member was an agent provocateur, would you report them? And to prevent the downfall of the organization and or movement, if ordered, would you neutralize them? That's question 18. That's, you know, and that's more subjective, more personal. That's something that only you would have to answer. You know, if you just discovered that your family member was a federal agent assigned with infiltrating you, what would you do? Right? But again, we got Strategic Alliance. We got copies. Now, this book right here, I would love to. You know, I don't have control over the printing of the book right now. I self-published this book, so all of the copies that are printed, of course, you know, the self-publishing agency gets the major portion of profits from the book. But right now, and I hate to say this, with the price range being what it is, each copy is $25. Again, I wish I could lower the price, but you know, until I produce the book myself, which you guys are going to help me do, right now the book is priced at $25. Right now, I think $25 is kind of steep, but in terms of the content of the book and the effects that it will have on your critical thinking, I don't think $25 is too much sacrifice. So I'm going to end the book on that note. Again, we have copies of Strategic Alliance. I really want you guys to read this book. I think every black household with serious-minded black men in the house should have a copy of this book. And if you want a copy of it, you can send me an email at ecg.alliance@gmail.com. And, introduce yourself and, request a copy of the book. And if I have copies on hand, I'll get it to you. If not, then I'll order the book. But again, Strategic Alliance is now being sold. And I hope you guys order a copy. It's a thick book, and it's a difficult read if you're not well versed in certain ideologies and politics. If you're not well read, it's going to be a very difficult read. But the storyline is explosive. It speaks for itself. I mean, Bill Duke. I sent a copy of this book to Bill Duke, the Hollywood movie producer, and he liked it years ago. But again, if you want a copy of the book, or if you want to make comments on the book, inquire about the book, contact me at E as in Eric, C as in Carl, G as in Green, ecg.alliance@gmail.com, and we'll try to get you copies of the book. It's starting to get loud up in here now, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe to the channel. And man, I need y'all. I really need y'all. Like I say, I have some good ideas for some of us. So just hit me up if you're interested. On that note, we're going to end it, and peace out.